my fantasy friends. I'm the Raging Redhead Cam Stewart, and welcome to your Week 8 wide receiver preview presented by HotRoster. Let's dig in. Well, we all know the New York Jets, they're a mess. You know it, I know it, Coach Todd Bowles knows it. No one is oblivious to the situation in New York. But maybe the only team competing with the Jets for that title this season are the Cleveland Brownies, who welcome the Jets, Jets, to First Energy Stadium. This visit should mean good things for the one they call Brandon Marshall. The Browns' pass defense has been downright awful. And over the last 3 weeks, they've allowed the Hulkster Jr., Chris Hogan of the Patriots, Kendall Wright of the Titans, and A.J. Green of the Bengals to record over 100 yards receiving. And yes, I do know Brandon Marshall has been struggling. He's only combined for 10.9 fantasy points in his last 2 weeks, but to me, this is the week he turns it around. He's got his boy, Ryan Fitzpatrick, back, and although I'm not sure anyone in the right mind would want that, Brandon Marshall actually does. And you know what? Call me crazy, but I think it's what allows him to have a huge day against Cleveland. Fire up Marshall if you have him. Another disappointment in fantasy this season has been Doug Baldwin of the Seattle Seahawks. He was a top 10 wideout last year, but it seems like Baldwin has regressed big time in 2016. The Stanford product caught a ridiculous 14 touchdowns last season. So far this year, he has a whopping 2. But there might be light at the end of the tunnel for Baldwin. He faces the Saints, a team that has given up 10-plus points to 6 different wideouts in 6 games. So if there was ever a time to get back on track, this is the week. The opportunities, yeah, they've been there for Baldwin. He still leads the team with 41 targets, so I have faith in this guy. Roll with him on HotRoster if you got him. Most times when we're talking about a big mess, it's the usual suspects, the Jets, the Brownies, the Raiders. But this season couldn't be more different for the Silver and Black. Believe it or not, the Raiders sit atop the AFC West at 5-2. And part of their success has to be credited to Michael Crabtree, of all people. Now, I gotta hand it to the Texas Tech product. He seems to have a resurgence in Oakland. Crabtree is coming off a game that netted him 8 catches for 96 yards and a score, and his 6 touchdowns have him tied for the league lead, and he has scored at least 9 fantasy points in 6 of his 7 starts. This week, the Raiders draw the Buccaneers in Tampa. Yarr! And I expect a shootout between Derek Carr and Jameis Winston. Start Michael Crabtree if you have him. Look for him on HotRoster matchups. It's next to impossible to pick against him this week. I see big things for Mr. Crabtree. Maybe one of the easiest decisions for me this week has to be sitting the Chicago Bears' Alshon Jeffrey, or any Bears offensive players, really. I mean, let's be honest, there's likely no bigger disappointment in 2016 than Jeffrey. Sure, like his old buddy Brendan Marshall, Jeffrey gets his boy Jay Cutler back in the lineup, but I'm not buying into Jeffrey for 1 second. Plus, Cutler couldn't be coming back at a worse time as the Bears host an angry Minnesota Vikings team on Monday Night Football. The Purple People Eaters have one of the best pass defenses in the NFL, and they haven't allowed a receiver to top 70 yards since week 2. And I can't see it being any different this week. If anything, Cutler is going to be serving up dishes that the Vikings are going to eat up. That's why I'm pressing down against Jeffrey this week on HotRoster. And speaking of more disappointments, Jeremy Maclin of the Chefs has been a dud this year. The former Missouri Tiger has had a season to forget. Maclin currently has just 1 touchdown this season, and it came against San Diego back in week 1. He hasn't had a single game with 100-plus yards receiving. I mean, he hasn't even topped 50 yards over his past 2 weeks. Maclin has been brutal. But maybe it's not all his fault. The Chiefs just love to run that rock rather than air it out. Now, and add the fact that Maclin has a date with the Colts, and that just doesn't fare any better for the guy. Indianapolis is only allowing 8.3 fantasy points per game to opposing number 1 wide receivers, so don't be shocked if Maclin gets less than 50 yards again in this matchup, and that's why I'm picking against him on HotRoster. And finally, one guy has seemed to turn it around is one Golden Tate. The former Fighting Irish wideout has seen 27 targets over his last 3 weeks compared to just 26 in his first 4 games. And there's no doubt he has reestablished himself as a trusted player for Matt Stafford to throw to. My only concern for the Golden Domer is not only the matchup he has against the Texans on the road, but the return of another former Irishman, Theo Riddick. You see, before Riddick went down, he had 76 touches within that Lions offense, which was twice as much as any other Detroit Lion. And it seems in Riddick's absence, the player who benefited the most was Tate. And so it stands to reason. With Riddick poised to return, Tate would be the one affected by it. Plus, add the fact the Texans have only surrendered 4 scores and a third fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, and I'm gonna pass on Tate this week. So that's all, folks. Make sure you check out HotRoster today with me and the human encyclopedia Gary and Thorne every weekday at 4:30, and then take that information we're giving you and use it to win on HotRoster. Week 8, baby, we're in the thick of it. I'm Cam Stewart for the Fantasy Sports Network, and I'm going to see you on the virtual gridiron.